Welcome to Dad Talk Today. My name is Eric Carroll, and we have an amazing show lined up for you. We are fighting for fathers all across the United States and all across the world where you can be glad to be dad. Stick around, guys. Dad Talk Today is about to begin. Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk Today. It is Tuesday night and I am here with my man, Mr. Kevin Hickey. Kevin, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right. So we moved the show back one day, guys. We usually do this on Monday. We've had some events coming up, got some more events coming up this weekend. But we'll be kicking off our series again, guys. If you got any questions for Kevin, type them down in the comments. I'll bring in McKevin and, real quick, nothing about this creates a client-attorney relationship. Not meant to be professional advice, even though you're getting it from a professional. The disclaimer's out of the way. So, Kevin, what's something we can talk about while these questions are coming in?
Well, I had I guess I'll talk about the case I had today. Today's one of the days that you go to law school for, at least for me. You can go to 100 different ways when you get your law degree of what kind of law you want to practice. And this is the type of practice that I have is a lot of custody and divorce and DHS, CPS cases, and represented a father for the last year and a half. And I'm so proud of him. He did everything he needed to do. He got all his stuff done. It was a DHS case and his son got to go home with him today. And, those are the days that you go to work for. Those are the days that you wait for, because that doesn't happen every day. And you have to take those victories and really celebrate them,
Yeah. What's that like for you after working hard on those cases and knowing what some of these guys are going through to see them finally get justice? We know a lot of times they don't, but that's got to be a good feeling.
It's incredible. And there were a lot of hugs today and it's relief. I mean, I could hear, him sitting next to me, and we knew what was going to happen in the hearing because of leading up to it. We could see that he had gotten all his stuff done and that this was going to happen. And you could almost feel the weight coming off of his shoulders from the last year and a half. I mean, it's like being in a prize fight for 18 straight months. You're every day, you're a bundle of nerves, and you're exhausted every day. And then you get the relief and oh my gosh, there was a light at the end of the tunnel and this is going to happen. And it was fantastic.
I can't imagine what that'd be like, spending those years and that money, constantly having to worry what's going to happen next. Am I going to be able to see my kid? Am I not going to be able to see my kid? That does have to be a big sigh of relief afterwards. And, yeah, in all honesty, a lot of these feelings that these guys are going through, they shouldn't have had to go through in the first place.
That's true. And I do want to point that out. This father didn't do anything wrong. He was in North Carolina. Mom was here in Arkansas with the child. And the reason the child got pulled into DHS custody was because of mom, not because of dad. So he didn't do anything wrong, but because he was so far away, there's red tape and everything else. And it just took a long time to get that all taken care of.
Yeah. Well, we got one question in here so far, guys. Again, if you got some questions, put it down in the comments. I'll bring it to Kevin. We will start out with Mr. Robert Garza, familiar face. He said,
never heard of him.
Me neither. He said, Kevin, when a judge makes a ruling, is the ruling instant as far as going by the orders?
That's a really good question, Robert. And, the answer is sort of. That's a great lawyer answer, right? Technically, an order does not go into effect until it's in writing. You may hear at the end of the hearing, the judge will tell one of the attorneys to draft the order, and then the attorneys will share that over the next few days, and they'll make sure it's what the judge wanted and what the judge ordered, and then they'll sign it and get it back to the judge to sign. When the judge then signs it and sends it over to the clerk, and it gets that file mark up on the top, that's when it's an official order. And that's when, in most states, that's when your time to appeal runs, is on that file mark, not the day you were in court. So you want to look at that file mark date. Now, here's the thing. We're dealing with custody and visitation a lot. And let's say you went to court today. Well, let's talk about the case I was just talking about. That child went home with his father today. The judge ordered that and said, I want to go ahead and do this today. There is no order. There's no written order in place yet. So if you have a question about that at the end of your hearing, ask your attorney now, is this effective today? Are we starting visitation this weekend? Those are usually kind of the questions you have. So most of the time I tell clients, look, the judge has ruled. There's not a written order yet, but I think you guys need to start operating under what he just said he's ordering. So you need to talk to your attorney about it. Most of the time, if the parties can at least communicate, they start doing the order instantly, but sometimes not.
Yeah. All right. We have one in here for Mr. Stephen Creasy. He said, Kevin, what is establishment? My lawyer said he was going to get that for me, and my ex started texting me now after a year, now that I got a lawyer. I guess because they served papers on her?
Maybe you can enlighten me on that, Eric. I don't know what establishment is.
Stephen, tell you what, brother, he's got another question in here. I'm going to go ahead and ask that, kind of further clarify that a little bit to us. And I promise you, we will get to that question. We'll go to his other one. He said, what all do I need to do to ask for and to watch for in mediation?
Well, the mediation, I think, is a wonderful mechanism that's come around in the law in the last few decades. It's been around a long time, but it didn't really get real popular until the last 20 years or so. Mediation is a process where you have a mediator. That is a person that is independent. They are neutral. Usually it's an attorney, and they have one job, and that's to try to settle your case. So you're going to go in there with your attorney, Stephen. The other side's going to go in with their attorney. You're both going to be, most mediators will start everybody off in separate rooms. Sometimes they start you together and then break you up. But you're going to be in different rooms, and then the mediator is going to go back and forth with settlement offers 2 or 3 times or 20 times until they can get an agreement reached. That's the only job a mediator has, is to try to get your case settled. It works about 70% of the time, so it's fairly successful. As far as what you need to ask for and watch for in mediation, I tell people ahead of time, the word of the day when you go to mediation is compromise. You're going to have to, if you want to get that case settled that day, you're going to have to compromise a little bit. Now, the other side's going to have to compromise too. You're not going to walk out of there giving away everything, but you've got to go in with the mindset that you're not going to get everything you want if you want to try to get that case settled. As far as what to ask for, you want to make sure usually that we've got a fair amount of the discovery finished, any documents you may need or financial information, that kind of thing. You've got all that, you and your attorney, when you go to the mediation. As far as what to watch for, just listen to your attorney and really watch what's coming back and forth on the offers that you're getting from the other room. I was a certified mediator for several years. I still get asked periodically to mediate cases for attorneys. I've done, I don't even know how many mediations as a participant as well, representing somebody. As far as what to watch for, talk to your attorney, because if they've done it a lot, I can usually tell very early on if we're going to head toward a settlement or not. Sometimes I'm surprised, but usually you can tell in that first offer or two if you guys are getting in the same ballpark or not. So kind of watch for that on those offers that come back into your room.
Yep. Got one in here from Miss Brianna Harper. She said, if you agree to a temporary time sharing with a GM just until court so you can see your child, but it's not working, will a judge keep that time sharing?
What's a GM, I'm wondering?
The only thing I could think of was either General Motors or General Manager.
Yeah, I was thinking General Manager.
Brianna.
Till court.
clarify that. What do you mean by a GM? And guys, sometimes we know a lot of these abbreviations, sometimes we don't. But if you'll get that down there, I'll get this question back up, I promise you. We got one from Paul Boyette. He said, I live in Tennessee. My wife and I have had a pending divorce for 2 years with no parental time for me at all. I have been living back at home now for the past 7 months. So does this change anything legally?
So I think what Paul's saying is that he's back home with her. They've reconciled over the last 7 months. Is that how you're reading that, Eric?
I think so.
Does it change anything legally? Well, if Tennessee's like most states, they do want you to be separated. In Arkansas, technically, you can be separated and still be in the same house. It comes down to each of you living in separate rooms and there's no marital relations going on and that kind of thing. If you guys have reconciled and you're kind of back into a marital relationship and you've been there 7 months, you need to talk to your attorney about what kind of ground. I mean, that may mess up your grounds for the divorce. You just have to talk to him. I'm assuming you say there's no parental time for you, but if you've been back in the home for 7 months, I hope, I mean, obviously you should be seeing the kids every day. So the only thing legally would be the grounds for the divorce. That might be altered. I would think it helps you as from a custody standpoint. If she's okay with you moving back in the home and you've been there 7 months and around those kids all the time, then it's going to be very hard for her if you separate again to say you shouldn't be around the kids or something like that because she's taking you back in the home. So
he said, I'm sorry. She has now continued the divorce as of last week.
So he moved back in for 7 months and now she started again.
Yeah, he had said that was correct when you asked that earlier.
Yeah, I think your attorney, if I'm your attorney, I'm going to be using that and saying, Judge, clear. If she starts trying to say you shouldn't have joint custody or something like that, I would be arguing, Judge, she had no problem with him moving back in over the last 7 months. He's clearly not a danger to these kids. She has no issue with him being around them. I don't think it's real genuine that she's claiming that now. So as far as legally, Paul, I'd kind of take that angle going forward.
Solomon said, thank God I needed this stream today. Solomon, if you got some questions, put it down there, guys. If you got questions for Kevin, feed them to us. I just want to give a thank you to our sponsors. Kevin's one of his law firm is one of the ones that sponsors us and come on here and they give their time to answer these questions. I think this is one of the most effective tools we've got in this community. Not everybody can afford to ask these questions. So I just want to say thank you to the Hickey and Hole Law Firm for doing this. But also, guys, we also got MyPillow on board now. If you go to MyPillow and put in the code DadTalk, no spaces, DadTalk, you'll get up to 66% off. I think that's pretty cool. And as of today, we're adding on Clout Hub. If you would like a social media alternative without a lot of the censorship, very good guys. I love the owner. He protects your right for free speech. And if you'll go check out that platform right now, it's operating almost identical to this one. And it's really good guys. So wanted to give a shout out to them as well as the Isaac Law Firm. Really good guys that have been fighting to give you guys some of the answers that you need. Divorce is so hard, Kevin. And sometimes the amount that people are spending in litigation, I understand. A lot of them don't have the money for these fees that are coming up. But then again, you can't really afford to go into these battles without an attorney.
Oh, that's true. You're going in with your hands tied behind your back if you do, because especially if the other side has an attorney, you just, there's a reason we spend 4 years, getting our undergrad degree and then 3 years of law school. I mean, there's a lot to it. There's evidence rules and procedure rules, and you're just going to have circles run around you if you go in there without a lawyer.
Yeah. So guys, get out there. If you got any questions, or tonight, if you got some of these questions and you're like, I'm not sure where to go to, check these guys out. Between the Isaac Law Firm and the Hickey and Hole Law Firm, I'm telling you, there's not many attorneys that I do recommend, but I recommend them wholeheartedly. Brianna came back down here in the comments and she said it means general magistrate. So if you agree to a temporary time sharing with the general magistrate just until court so you can see your child, but it's not working, will a judge keep that time sharing?
Probably not. If you've agreed to something on a temporary basis, I had a temporary hearing on another case today in a divorce case. And Well, what temporary hearings generally do is something's just been filed, either a motion for change of custody or a divorce. And so now the parties are kind of in this limbo. They don't know how to really, when are you getting the kids? When do I get them? And arguments start. So sometimes we have what's called a temporary hearing. It's a fairly quick hearing. It's usually 30 minutes, sometimes up to an hour, for the judge to get an idea of what the situation is. And they will put together, okay, here's the ground rules for you guys until we have a final hearing. So that's usually what a temporary hearing is about. Many times we can enter into an agreement, and it sounds like in Brianna's question here, that's what they did. They had a general magistrate, which is a type of judge in some states, and they agreed, and I'm assuming that was on the record, so it became what we call an agreed order on a temporary time-sharing arrangement that they were going to go by until this became final. So going to the last part of that question, if it's not working, will a judge keep that time-sharing arrangement? Probably not, but it depends to what extent that it's not working. Remember what a judge's number one paramount goal is in every case involving children. What is in the best interest of the children? So the judge is going to look at this temporary time sharing to see if the parents were able to get along and implement it. And if it's a disaster and it's not working, that judge is going to try to put something together that will work for this child. So you'll have to talk to your attorney. Sometimes if it's just not working a little bit, then that's okay. Or if you're having some small problems with it, then he may keep it in place. But if there's major issues with it, he probably will change it.
All right. I appreciate that question, Brianna. I hope everything goes well for you. We got a question in here from Mr. Edmund Dantes. And this is one we get asked a lot. He said, how do you recommend dealing with a narcissist during mediation? I guess there's lots of different tricks and stuff in there to look at, and they don't want to mediate. How would you recommend on that, Kevin?
Hold them to the offers. Now, remember, when you're in there with your attorney, you're going to be in one room. The narcissist and their attorney is going to be in the other room. Offers are going to be going back and forth. So if I feel like, one thing a narcissist might do in a mediation is try to mess with the offer, send one offer over, and then totally change it up the next time, trying to control things. Stay in communication with your own attorney. Make sure that your attorney understands what you're dealing with in the other room, and make sure that mediator kind of sends messages to the other side, says, look, when we're making progress toward an agreement and then you pull all these items out of the agreement that have been sitting there for hours that you never had a problem with, that's not productive. So you got to try to see if you can hold their feet to the fire on offers they're making, and just keep sending the offers back and forth and try to get it mediated.
Yeah. Just wanted to walk you guys through something real quick. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick, Kevin. If you guys will check this out, it is kevinhickeylaw.com. There's a lot of different blogs on here on parental alienation, civil litigation, criminal, children in custody. I know you've done a lot of blogs on that. And how often do you got those going up, Kevin?
At least twice a week. We will either have pertinent articles or blog entries going up. At least twice a week, we're putting content up there that's new or something that's helpful for clients.
Yeah, guys, please go and check that out. There's so many different things that goes in there to prepare you for what you're going to go through when you're dealing with this with a narcissist or an alienator.
When you go to our first page on our site, you will see a bunch of different buttons there, and we try to make it very easy to navigate through whatever type of question you have. So.
And that's kevinhickeylaw.com. We got a question in here from Miss Stephanie Bradbury. She said, any suggestions going into enforcement hearing? Already 50-50 parenting time with young teens saying doesn't want to come back and live 50-50, resist therapy, etc.
Okay, so I'm thinking when they say enforcement, that means that someone's not complying with the order and they're trying to get a previous order of the court. They're trying to get it enforced. I don't know if you have an ad litem in your case, Stephanie, and young teen. That's That's a lot of times when you start, once these children become teenagers, that's a lot of the time when you start seeing them rebel. They start not wanting to go to one parent's house or the other, and all kinds of a host of other issues. There's something going on there. There might be some alienation going on there. I don't know. As far as suggestions, try to get your ducks in a row on your evidence. Try to show that nothing's changed in your home. Your home is just as loving and welcoming as it's always been, but something's going on with this child that's making them not want to be there, not want to talk to anybody in therapy. You've just got to show that, look, it's not us, Judge. You need to leave this 50-50 in place. We got to try to do something with this child, but it's not coming from my house. And if you have an ad litem in place, talk to the ad litem and see if they've got any insights as to what's going on.
How does rules play into that, Kevin? I mean, I see when an alienator has total control, they'll kind of like be right on top of the child and want total control of the child, just like they want control of the other parent. Whereas if it's like 50-50, there'll be a little bit more leniency towards the rules and everything. Like, I'll give you what you want, so you don't want to go over there. Have you seen that inside of court cases?
You mean where they'll manipulate rules in their own house to try to manipulate the child? Absolutely.
Give the kid what they want, so they don't want that other parent.
And all the time. And we have clients come to us that, and it's a tough spot. They say, look, I'm not mean to my child, but I do have rules. I do have discipline, and I want them to grow up to be a responsible adult. And my ex is it's Disney World every day over there. Lets them stay up till 1 a.m. It's not healthy. And so what they're worried about is that the child's going to talk to the ad litem or come to court and say, dad's mean or mom's mean, unfair, all these other things, when really they just have rules in place. And they're not being overly heavy-handed or anything. It's just that the children, and really pretty much everyone's going to try to go to the place of least resistance, or where they have the most fun or the less rules. And especially teenagers are going to do that. And so you just have to point out to the court that, look, this is not an unhealthy or heavy-handed home. I'm just trying to have my child follow some rules and become a responsible adult.
Right. And I know my side's on the microphone. You're the one inside a court seeing how this is going on, and every judge is different. But if they see that, this parent's trying to give these rules, and you got the Disneyland person over here using that with alienation, how does the judges usually look at that?
They understand it, and they understand, especially if you've had a judge that's been on the bench for a while. I really like that, especially when they've been doing a lot of divorces and custody cases through the years. They've seen most everything, and they know that children are going to want to go to the home where they can kind of run amok.
Right.
So they're used to that. If you can get a good ad litem on your case, they're used to it too. And their recommendation or their job is to make a recommendation to the court. And remember the paramount thing: what's in the best interest of this child?
Right.
If you get a good ad litem, they're going to say, Judge, this child needs structure. And, I know they may not be happy about some of the rules, but I think that's the kind of structure they need.
Yeah. Paul Boyette said, what all goes into filing an order of reconciliation?
I think he's talking about reconciling again. I don't know on an order of reconciliation. I can tell you, we file for divorce, we serve the other spouse, and the divorce has started. And if months down the road they decide they don't want to be divorced, they want to stay married and get back together, we usually just dismiss the divorce, and that just they're still married at that point. I think Paul was in Tennessee. Tennessee may have some kind of rule or law about that you need to file an order saying that you're reconciling. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Jeff Shaw said, when are they going to stop imprisonment and license loss. I'm guessing he's talking about like if you get behind on child support. I could be wrong on this, Jeff. I don't know if you know about it, Kevin. I want to say in the state of Oklahoma, they actually got legislation through that said you will not lose your license due to being behind on child support. I know in the state of Georgia, man, you get behind one payment, you get a letter in the mail saying, hey, we're about to take your license from you. And I've never really understood that one.
Well, that's pretty strict, and this is where state child support enforcement agencies have some mechanisms they can use that private attorneys can't, because we get hired sometimes to go after ex-spouses that are way behind on child support to try to get it collected. There's a lot of things, though, that we can't do that these state agencies, child support enforcement, can do. They, just like he says, they can take your license.
Yep.
They can get a body attachment on you, which is basically like a warrant, put you in jail until you pay a certain amount of money. They will absolutely seize your tax refund before you ever see it, and apply that to a child support arrearage. Those are all things that private attorneys, at least in Arkansas, we can't do because we're not a government agency. But yeah, as far as when they're going to put a stop to it, I don't know. I don't see an end to that.
Have I ever told you the story about Dr. Carlos Rivera out of New York?
I don't think so.
Pediatrician now. Okay, pediatrician gets a divorce. He's ordered to pay $18,000 a month.
Oh.
And then he was in charge of the bills for his ex. He said before his water bill was like $50. Once he moved out of the house, the water bill was $500 a month. Like, it got ridiculous. He got, I think, close to $500,000 behind. They put this pediatrician, well-respected pediatrician, in jail. And he talks about his ex sent him money in jail for his canteen card, and they took that from him. So he needed some underwear. He said he got his first pair of underwear in jail from a crack addict. And he tells that story, and it's like, I went to school for 7 years to become a doctor, well respected in my area, and because they put me on $18,000 a month, I couldn't afford it. He said he'd work all day and then come out at night, and he'd have to take his hat out and put it on the side of the road just to raise money to get him something to eat.
Wow.
I mean, our system's broken.
Yeah.
I get it, guys.
Yeah.
Brianna Harper came with another question. She said, do judges take into account a parent who has moved multiple times and moved back and forth between counties over the last couple of years when establishing primary residence for things such as school?
I guess I would ask it this way. Yes. When we have a custody case, I always want to know about when we go to court, and I want to let the judge know if the custodial parent is unstable. And there's three primary areas. There may be another one that I always look at on instability. One is financial. One is moving. Are they stable in the same place? And that's kind of what you're talking about. And the other one is mental health. Are they unstable mentally? All of those things we look at, and moving around is a sign that this person is either having financial problems, or they're having criminal problems, or they're running from something, and or they just can't provide a stable home for this child. And so, yeah, all of those things are something that I would be wanting to bring up. And to school, a lot of times that if they're school age, that results in them having to change schools all the time, which is very stressful and very hard on children.
Yeah. All right. So this next question, I think, is going to spur a little bit of conversation. I'm going to have to correct him on this first one. He said, why support the $50 billion a year industry? Chuck, it is now a $60 billion a year industry. I got those new statistics over the weekend. He said, why not just 50-50 custody? I think that's something that we're definitely advocating for. We just passed it in Arkansas. It got passed in Kentucky. But here's the thing, guys. I was talking about this the other day, Kevin. I used to say, man, these politicians don't care about us. They just want to do this. There's a lot of people out there actually fighting for change. But what we need is a community that supports them. If you got somebody that's going to fight for it, you're going to have to fight for them. We got to make sure those type of people get in office. And even if they do get in office and get legislation going, guys, they're met by resistance all across the board. Okay. I mean, I saw that go down in the state of Texas. So if we don't want to support it. Unfortunately, right now, if you want to see your kids and you're going through these issues, it's what we got. It's what we got. We can sit here and talk about how we're not going to support it, but if you want to change the system, we need you guys on board. Right?
Well, and I understand the question about why I support this, this industry and all this, and why not just 50-50? Well, it takes two to tango. And let's say Chuck comes to me tomorrow and says, I need to hire you for this case. I want 50-50 custody. I'm like, great, let's go. Let's file it. Well, what if mom says no? If she won't agree to that, we got to prepare for trial, and we got to get our ducks in a row. And you don't want to go in there halfway. And so we've got to go to court and convince the judge that's what we need. I mean, so and I know a lot of people want to blame attorneys a lot of times, and there's bad attorneys just like any other business.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's one or both of the parties. And when they're going like this, all you can do is work your way through it. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Again, guys, unfortunate right now, it's what you got. And if we get in here and get some work going, I can promise you this weekend we'll make 38 states we've been to talking about 50-50 legislation. So things are going, but we need you guys to get behind us. And I'm glad we have attorneys like Kevin that are out there. I believe, Kevin, you actually went and gave a testimony in Arkansas in support of 50-50 legislation before it passed, didn't you?
Well, I did. I wrote a letter and had it down there because I was out of town when it happened, but I would have. And we didn't know if it was going to pass or not, and it passed with flying colors. But yeah, I definitely supported it.
Yeah, guys. So change is coming, but we need you to get on board. We got our next question from Dylan Michael Richardson. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that's reaching out tonight. A lot of you guys I've never heard from before. This is what we do on Dad Talk. This happens every other week with Kevin. Be watching out for it. And if you got questions, this is what we're here for. Dylan says, Kevin, I live in Indiana. I'm thinking I need to put myself on child support to have it court ordered to have time with my son. She constantly holds him from me as if it's getting one up on me. If and when I get him, she is constantly blowing my phone up, calling and texting, threatening me. What steps or pointers can you guys give me to help my situation? Thank you. Been needing this, gentleman.
Dylan, you are exactly on the right path. She is going to, I've seen this, I can't even tell you how many times in 21 years. She's going to hold the child over your head like this until you go to court and you get a schedule put in place by a judge. And it sounds like this is a paternity situation where the two of you are not married. In most states, when a child is born and the parents are not married, the mother automatically has custody, and the father has to file what's called a paternity action to get his legal rights established. You need to get it with an attorney in Indiana, and you need to get that filed and ask for paternity, be legally declared the father, get a visitation schedule put in place, and yes, they will set up child support. That's okay. And I don't know what Indiana's situation is on shared custody, but that may be something you want to look at too. But yes, you're going to need to get an attorney and get something put in place by a judge because then she has to comply with that order. She can't control what you're doing. She can't say, bring them back right now, or you can't have them today. There will be a schedule put in place for you.
Yeah, Dylan. Yeah, and from my side, man, just telling you, I can identify with that. The phone blowing up and the different allegations and saying I'm going to do this or that. Understand that's gaslighting. One thing I've seen from narcissists and alienators, they love to argue. So don't give them any room to do that. Keep it about your child. Document those texts that are coming in, and just don't feed the monster, man. Don't feed it. There's nothing worth it. They're trying to get a reaction out of you. Don't give them one. And that makes them even madder, to be honest with you, but don't do it.
That's right. Just get a schedule put in place, ordered by a judge, and you'll be good to go.
That's it, brother. We got this question from Winford on YouTube. He said, what are signs that it may be time to change lawyers? I am overall happy with my lawyer, and we are held back by continued false allegations, but I feel like my adversary is a step ahead due to false allegations.
Well, this is a tough one. Ask yourself, it sounded like to me you need to stick with the lawyer you have. If you're overall happy with them, then you probably need to stay with where you are. But you need to ask yourself some questions about why are you dissatisfied with your attorney right now? Are they not getting the things done that you're wanting? That's usually why most clients are unhappy. But that may not be the lawyer's fault. The judge may have ruled in a strange way. The case may not have gone to court yet. There may be 100 different reasons why you don't have what the goals, what you're asking for. There may be 100 different reasons why you don't have those things yet. What I always say, if you are unhappy with your lawyer, set up an appointment, go sit down in front of them and talk to them about it. Tell them why you're unhappy, ask questions. We say this over and over on this program. The attorney works for you, not the other way around. You're paying them. They work for you. They're there to answer your questions. So set up a time, go in, say, here's why I'm unhappy, and get answers. If you don't like the answers or your attorney won't meet with you, then you may need to think about that. You may need to think about changing lawyers. But I always advise to try to fix things with your current attorney before you do that. Another attorney is going to come in. They're going to have to get up to speed. It might be in the middle of the case. There are many times I won't get in a case. I'll have a consult with the client and love the client and really want to help them, but they're in the 11th hour of their case and it's too late to really do anything. And so I won't get in the case. Anyway, that's sit down with your lawyer and talk to them about it.
That's it, man. Tom Maneo said, Kevin, if judge finds X in contempt, what can I ask the judge to reward civil, not criminal? Do you recommend entering amended modification of child custody or creating a new modification of child custody after existing modification of child custody gets dismissed by judge?
I got lost in a lot of the
modification
stuff there. The contempt sometimes, and this may be what Tom's talking about. Sometimes you get that your ex is in contempt, and that may lead to a change of custody if they've done something severe enough that puts them in violation of the order. That can sometimes lead into, okay, we need to change custody because of what she did. But as far as what to ask for, it depends on what the contempt is. If she has withheld your visitation against the order, then I usually ask for all of that visitation to be made up immediately. Ask for attorney's fees. If it's serious enough and you've had to take her back to court multiple times for contempt, you can ask that she be put in jail. A judge has a wide range of things they can do to a person that's not following their orders. Judges want 2 or 3 main things, but one of the main things is they want their orders followed. That's why they put them in place, and they don't want to see you back. And if you're coming back just because you're thumbing your nose at their order, they're not going to be happy about it. So, just think about what you're wanting and tell your attorney, here's what I'd like to have as a punishment for her, and see if that's something that's feasible. As far as the custody, it's hard to kind of go through that and see what's really going on. If you're wondering if you should ask to try to get custody modified because of the contempt, my answer would be it depends on how serious the contempt is. If it's a one-time thing and it wasn't real serious, it's hard to get custody changed for that. But if it's multiple things or one very major thing, it's possible.
Here we go. Miss Clara Bowles said, Kevin, what are protocols for having a lifetime restraining order?
I do not know. In Arkansas, interestingly, we were just talking about restraining orders the other day, and one of the longest ones I'd heard of in Arkansas was put in place. It was 5 years. I think in Arkansas we can go up to 10 years. I have not seen one that's a lifetime restraining order. I think if it's bad enough, obviously you could get something like that, especially if there's some kind of criminal charges that come out of the activity, whatever this person's doing. But it's going to be different in every state, Claire, and you're going to need to talk to an attorney in the state where you are. I would think it would have to be pretty severe, but it also depends on who the person is. If you have no connection to this person, you don't have children together or anything like that, it might be much easier to get a lifetime restraining order if there's no real reason for this person to be around you, like getting visitation or something like that. So just have to talk to an attorney in the state where you are.
Yeah. Tara Bowers Hawk said, isn't it in the state's best interest to award custody support to the lowest income parent, usually the mom, to boost Title 4D funding?
Oh, man. I'm not sure on that. I'm sure Eric could talk for an hour on that. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, so, I was telling Kevin when we very first started this show a little bit up about Title 4D. Title 4D is one of those weird monsters. I've heard all the way up to $7 for every dollar paid in child support is gave back to the state. I believe it's more about like 66%. It was made when no-fault divorce came in place to kind of reimburse the states back off of how much was collected in child support because of so many divorces coming up and people was asking for government assistance. It was putting a drain on the system once no-fault divorce came, and divorce spiked. So the answer to your question, Tara, would be yes, I think. But on the opposite side of that, not a lot of people know about Title 4D. I've talked to a lot of politicians that have no clue what it is, but I believe there is people in place that know that's what is going on. And I've heard judges are very aware of that. So that's another reason why we got to be out there really pushing the 50-50. Let
me pose this to you. Arkansas just now has shared parenting 50-50, yep, which means we're going to start seeing tons more orders with joint 50-50 time in them than we have in the past, because the judges are going to start, it's favored, it's presumed now. Arkansas has a new child support method for calculating child support, and you would put a worksheet together. You take both parents' incomes into account. This has been in place for right at a year now. It presumes that the non-custodial parent's going to get 141 days a year, which is about 60-40. 50-50 time is going to bump that up to 180 or whatever half 365 is. Under the child support chart, you can say, okay, I'm now getting more than the 141, so I have more expenses, so I should pay less child support. Where I'm headed with this is across the state, as these orders come into place, I would expect the child support dollars and the amount of child support awarded to start dramatically going down at some point. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but it seems logical that that's going to happen.
I think it should. Of course, if they've got 50-50 time, they wanted to go their separate ways. You live your separate lives, and we both take care of our child and do what's in the best interest. I mean, there's states like here where I live in Georgia, I got 50-50. They said you could not pay child support. Even if it is 50-50, somebody's got to pay it. So the only way that can cancel out is if your incomes are identical.
Right.
So, but I know what you're talking about, Kevin. Somebody really broke down that from Arkansas, and it makes a lot of sense. I like that model. And I think, if we get a year or two down the line and we see some of the statistics and what's going on with it, the results from it, Arkansas really is the state to watch. The only one right now that's had a 50-50 bill in place for a while is Kentucky. And I can tell you the results over there has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Including domestic violence going down 30% within the first year. I think that came from the silver bullet not being used as much because we took the contention out of the divorce, but
right.
Can't say for definite, but it's definitely something that sticks out. Okay. Ashley Carrillo said, my ex-husband moved out of the country and our court papers state that neither parent shall move the children out of state. The kids go with him every Thursday through Sunday. Is there anything that can be done? Also, when children are under his care, he avoids me talking to our children. Our child has had suicidal ideation and is something dad doesn't take seriously.
Okay, I think she said moved out of the county. Yep. The court papers state that neither party shall move the children out of the state. So I'm guessing that means he moved into a county outside the state.
That's what, yeah.
Well, that's something, Ashley, you're going to have to think about. Arkansas has a similar rule that you can't move out of the jurisdiction without permission of the court or written permission of the other parent. So if the other parent says, no, you can't move, then you have to have a court hearing on that to see if you're allowed to move. So that's probably something that you could bring up, and he could be held in contempt. Every judge is going to be different on that. We live on the state line of Oklahoma here. So a parent leaves here and moves 10 miles over there across the state line. a judge is not going to get as bent out of shape about that as if they took off to Colorado without permission. So that's a whole different deal. But as far as something that can be done, yeah, you can bring it up to the court. What I usually do, like if you came to me tomorrow, I'd say, let's write him a letter, or you can text him and tell him, look, I've talked to an attorney and I've got an attorney ready to go. I don't want to have to do that and spend that money, but the attorney's ready to go unless you just move back over here like you're supposed to, and then see if that gets anywhere.
Yeah. Not saying you're doing this, Ashley. I just want to, kind of point this out too. When the child's over there and they're having parenting time with their parent, you need to have calls and stuff like that, but be respectful of their time. They're with their parent.
Yeah.
I always make sure, like if my kids are over at their mom's, unless I got something really important to say, like I'll text them, I love you, good night, or something for a few minutes, but I try to let them have time with their parent. And I've seen it, Kevin, sometimes with alienators where they'll constantly text, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And it's like, are you trying to make them think that they have a reason to not be okay? And
see that all the time. And sometimes we have to put limitations on phone calls in the order. You can call one time a day for 15 minutes at night or whatever. You hate to have to get to that point. You hope the parents can at least say, look, let's just call once a day when they're with you, once a day when they're with me. But a lot of times parents can't do that, or one parent abuses it and just calls over and over, or they'll call them and stay on the phone with them for an hour and a half during your visitation time. None of that is fair to the parent that's trying to have visitation or see their children at the time. So that's something to monitor. And, but Ashley, yes, also at the same time, you should be allowed to talk to your kids. And if that's completely cut off and that's probably violating your order, then yeah, you need to do something about that.
That's right. Dave Murray said, Kevin, what is the process to sue a judge?
This might be the most popular question we get on. I think we've had that question more than any other question.
You got it again.
It's nearly impossible, Dave. It's got to be egregious. It's got to be criminal, pretty much. It's got to be to that level. Judges have so much immunity, and it's way beyond just thinking that they were negligent or that they made some mistakes in your case. It's got to be really, really bad and improper. That would be my answer.
All right.
Impossible would also be my answer.
Yep. Hey, Miss Lynn Kremsky, she's got a question for you, Kevin. She said, is my son entitled to part of the money his ex-wife gets from the state of Nevada for a son who has special needs? They have him since birth as a foster child. He is 3 years old and was adopted last year, and they've been getting the money since he was born.
I would need, Lynn, that's a great question, and I'd need more information. Or if they have joint custody, 50-50 custody, and this is money they were getting, I'm assuming now they're split up, either divorced or whatever. If he's got 50-50 custody and he's got presumably 50% of the expenses of taking care of this child, I think he should have 50% of that money that's coming in. That would be my answer without knowing more.
Yep. Got another one from Mr. Dave Murray. He said, does appellate court hear stay motions, a leave of a prior order till the appellate court reviews the appeal?
Okay. I think and this is an excellent question. It comes up a fair amount in my practice. So I think what he's asking is they've gone to trial, the trial court's ruled, and then somebody has filed an appeal of that order. And you're looking at least in Arkansas, I always tell clients, you're looking at least a year. That's about when you're going to get this appeal finished. So the next question is always, well, what do we do until that year is over? Well, you're supposed to operate under the order that was just entered by the trial judge. So whether you liked that order or not, that's the order that you're kind of stuck with until you can get the appeal heard, and the appellate court will either overturn that order or they'll affirm it and say that it stays in place. I think what Dave's asking is, can you file a motion to stay? In other words, the trial court's order that would normally immediately go into effect, the order that you're appealing, can you stop that? Can you say, no, we're not going to have that go into effect while this appeal is pending? Normally you can't do that. I can tell you that if you try to go back and try to file for custody again or child support again, something that's related to the appeal, you normally won't be able to do that until that appeal's over. But you just have to talk to an attorney in your state. But normally that trial court order immediately goes into effect and starts applying to the parties.
Yeah. Mr. Jeremy Trent said, Kevin, I have filed 6 to 8 show causes without any being heard by violating court order. But she filed for a change of venue and I get a summons. What is going on? Is that going to be one of those where you need a little bit more information?
Well, maybe, but I mean, the 6 to 8 show causes should have been heard. There should have been a hearing held, and he should have had his day in court. She says she filed for a change of venue, and I get a summons. If the case has been closed and then she's refiling, she's wanting to move the case somewhere else, then it would not be uncommon to have a summons attached to that. So that's part of just reopening the case. So I mean, as far as what's going on, it sounds like she's wanting to move the case and she served you with that. But I can't give you an answer on the show cause thing. You should have had hearings on that.
Yeah. Dave said, how come you never hear of states adding in the value of state aid into child support worksheets? Mom gets child support plus state aid.
Well, I would argue that it should be. I think that's a very good point. You know, Arkansas's child support, we have Administrative Order number 10, which goes through all the child support guidelines, and it's got all these factors. And one of the things the case law says, there's been numerous cases that have interpreted that, and they all say we want income of every kind should be included. It's very rare exceptions. All income should at least be looked at. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, if mom's getting some help, I think that should be added in. It just depends on what it is.
I know, talking from veterans, when they get disability, that's definitely added in. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't see if they say money's money if she's getting money in.
Yeah.
All right.
I know with the military, at least in Arkansas, the military, you know, you have that I think it's BAS and BAQ and that kind of thing. Those are usually added in as income. And those are like housing allowances type things.
Right. You bring a very good question, my man. Brianna Harper said, Kevin, if threats are made towards you and your family and you're being sent pictures of guns from the other parent's siblings and relatives, but not that parent directly, is that something to bring up to a judge?
Yes, it is. And also, you know, people will sometimes, and I'm not saying Brianna's doing this, but people will sometimes get so wrapped up in the divorce and the custody case that they forget that these other people that are relatives, siblings that are not parties to this case, they don't get the right to do whatever they want. I mean, they can be directly sued. You can file a lawsuit against them. They can be arrested for criminal activity just because they're not, you know, we sometimes get blinders that we're trying to fit things into a divorce case. You don't have to do that. So yes, it's something that needs to be brought up, especially if you feel like that the other parent is kind of fueling the fire for these people, stoking the fire or whatever to get them to act this way. The judge in your domestic relations case definitely needs to know about that. Now, you're going to have to prove it. You're going to have to do some discovery and try to prove it. But if the stuff you're talking about is really starting to get out of hand, and if the judge in the divorce case won't do something about it, I'd go to the prosecutor or whoever to get it to stop.
We got one from Mr. Jeremy Culpepper. He said, Kevin, how do you handle a child that will not speak up for what they want because the parent yells at them when they do? The child is given up because of the parent's behavior. We have a guardian ad litem, but the child says it's easier to do what the parent wants to avoid conflict with the parent.
Well, my hope would be, if that was my case, that we could get the child to tell the ad litem that, because what you've got is a child that is being so oppressed in the home that they can't even be themselves, can't even express themselves the way they want to, because the parent is creating such an oppressive home life for them. I would hope we could somehow get that child to testify if they were old enough, or at a minimum to tell the ad litem just what you say there at the end, that, look, it's just easier to do what mom wants me to do, or dad, or whoever it is, just to avoid conflict. For an ad litem, that is a very big red flag that home is not mentally and emotionally healthy for that child. So, how do you handle that? I don't know that you handle the child so much. I think you get with your attorney and you figure out some creative ways to try to present that to the court. And if you got an ad litem involved, sometimes that is the best way, is to make sure the ad litem knows how that child feels.
Yep. Ashby Tedder said, Kevin, I am going through divorce and I have a 2-year-old that is not mine, but I have raised since birth and am on birth certificate. Can I lose custody? She abandoned us and ran 3 states away.
Not mine. So this was mom's 2-year-old, I guess.
It's either that or the husband is commenting from that profile. Sometimes that's a comment. I'm not too sure.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. They're married. And so she got pregnant by someone else, I'm guessing. I'm on the birth certificate. Can I lose custody? She abandoned us, ran 3 states away. Well, I mean, I think the first thing is you say you're going through a divorce, so that's been filed. If she took off during the divorce without permission, that could be a real problem for her. So you need to make sure your attorney brings that up. She needs to come back to the jurisdiction where your divorce is. But I would push for custody. I would use her fleeing as a reason to show the judge why you should have custody, at least 50-50. Because she's not going to be trusted to not take off again. This is that's kind of a John Mast situation, Eric, to be honest, taking off like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of John Mast, and we got somebody in here, I guess they're not big on attorneys. He said, I'm sick of hearing talk to attorneys talking to other attorneys. Should have, could have, would have. Enough. March on these family courts and create a riot. A man was shot and killed over to the system, screwing them over. I think you know that man that was killed over that system, right, Kevin?
Well, probably, although it's becoming more common, But yeah, if he's talking about John Mast, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, let's take family court out of this. I mean, that situation, whether family court was there or not, I mean, it's hard to talk in hypotheticals, but that's a scenario that probably could have happened anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And I have said before, if he got full custody, if he had gotten full custody and she had to turn those kids completely over to him, I think the same thing would have happened at the exchange. I think that family was dead set on what they were going to do. And it's a shame. It's a real shame.
It really is, man. And nobody's sitting here saying, hey, we praise the system and let's feed these guys. But unfortunately right now, again, guys, it's what you got. And then, I've never seen anybody over 50 people actually show up to actually do something. So trying to get some of the legislation and doing some of the stuff we're doing, I believe, it's what we've got, and getting off the keyboards and showing up in person is where the power is.
The system's going to be in place for a while. Even if it's eventually changed, this is the system you got to work with. And that's my job. And I think it's what Eric's doing, is to try to tell you guys how to navigate. If this is the playing board you got to play on, then we got to figure out how to play the game. And you need an attorney that knows how to handle it. And you just got to get through it. Got to go through it.
So I was talking to you a little bit before we came on. We got to interview Attorney General Ken Paxton the other day, and I looked him in his face and told him straight, I was like, you're probably the most hated man in the state of Texas, right? When it comes to family court. I'll give you guys, some of the behind the scenes. He said, I know that. He said, I know that, but what people don't know is I am a proponent of fathers' rights. I do want to see shared parenting get through. Eric, I was voted in, and he said, I have a job to enforce. I'm not here to create the laws. I'm here to enforce them. He said, I don't like it either. And he said, I fought for parental rights to keep the states out of the having control over what parents can do with their kids. And I also have fought against the unconstitutional gag orders, but you don't hear about that. So, being able to have those conversations and find out what's actually going on. If we don't like the system, we change it. I think another common thing I hear, Kevin, I get it. I get why these guys are angry. We're not justifying the system, but I hear all the time, stop paying child support. Do not feed the system anymore. Just stop paying your child support. Kevin, with the current way that this system is set up right now, if you stop paying child support, what's going to happen to you?
Nothing good. And you're going to end up in jail. You're going to end up with, like we were talking about earlier, your license being suspended. You're going to get your tax refunds seized. The judge is going to be upset with you. That's going to be in your file. That's going to be in your court file. Every time you go back to court in the future, that judge, first thing they do usually is pull out that file and start bringing themselves up to speed on what's happened in the past. And you don't want that in there that you were avoiding child support or not paying. I mean, nothing good's going to come from it. And we want the system changed, but that's not the way to do it.
I know. We got a question from Mr. Jeff Nyberg. He said, Kevin, what if your daughter is raped and the ex tried covering it up? What if my daughter overdosed last night and you're still being shut out? What if your ex works for the medical providers? What do I do? He also put down here, also drugs were found in her system. I haven't seen my daughter but once in the last month. Also last night, so 2 times, and my son is now extremely tired of all this.
You just need to file some kind of emergency hearing. If that kind of stuff's going on, that's about as major and awful as it gets. And you got to file something for some kind of emergency relief and get in front of a judge. And I hope whoever this person was that did this to your daughter has been caught, arrested, whatever else.
Yep. And, I think it's important that we ask some of these questions. It was Dr. Warren Farrell that I was talking to one day, and I told him, I was like, Dr. Farrell, sometimes I get people on here, and I was like, I don't know how to deal with it. They're very angry people, and then sometimes that anger comes out towards you, right? And he said, Eric, you got to understand, some of these guys have been through situations that it's even hard to explain, and that manifests itself in anger. We're not here to turn them away. We've got to find a way to say, look, we hear you and we need healing, so we can help them navigate through this and get a part of it. Saying that, the person that, I was just talking about these questions that, he put down there, I did 12 months in jail and was raped by 5 guys for a child. I was forced to sign my rights away because of money. I can understand where that anger comes from. Absolutely. Nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should, but I promise you guys, there's efforts being put into this night and day. I mean, whenever you're not seeing me on this show, we're working on it, man. I'm sorry that any of you have had to go through this. Anybody that wrote into the show tonight, some of these, what you're having to pay, the situations you're going through, it's not right. It's not fair. And that's why we do this. We really want to be here to help you and get somewhere, and I'm not talking about attorneys, get somewhere, find somebody that you can confide in, because situations like that, I would be damaged too. I'd be ready to, I don't even know where my head would be. I don't know what it would be like to be inside those shoes. And I apologize that any of this is happening to you guys, but that's why we fight the system. Yeah. That's why we fight the system. Solomon said, I gave up drinking so that I would be able to see my child. Would love to have that first drink, but maybe better off, man. You know what, guys? Alcohol and drugs. I'm a former addict. I was doing alcohol and drugs. I've never seen anybody come up to me and say alcohol and drugs made my life better. Good point. And I think when we're going through these, custody disagreements and divorce, it's a hard time. You haven't been, you're losing your family. You're losing what you had, and that leaves a void in there. I no longer have that person to come home to every day. I no longer have that person to hold my hand and to tell my problems with. And that void we fill with these substances. And guys, I'm telling you, it's not good, because those feelings are going to come back the next day. Find a way to get that healing and keep your head screwed on. I know it's not easy, but anyway, Kevin, that's another episode, guys. I thank each and every single one of you for writing in tonight. Kevin, if anybody's wanting your services, man, where can they find you? Well, our phone number is 479. That's Arkansas area code, 479-434-2414. Our main office is in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We also have an office in Rogers, Arkansas, which is up in Northwest Arkansas. You can find us on the web at www.kevinhickeylaw.com. And we've got all kinds of information on there. A lot of questions you have can probably be answered on there. We have a ton of content. And like I said, when you go to the homepage, there's a bunch of buttons across the top that'll
about all kinds of issues with domestic relations, narcissism, parental alienation, DHS, CPS. We've got all that stuff on there. I also take high conflict custody cases all over the country. So if you have a case in a state that's not in Arkansas or not an Arkansas case, that's fine. We will look at that. And if you hire us, we come in and work alongside your local attorney. Usually those are the cases that involve false allegations of abuse, parental alienation, those kinds of things that are real high conflict custody. But those are the kind of cases we handle and can help with.
Guys, I can't recommend him enough. He's been a great help to me. I know you worked really hard on the John Mast case. So if you guys please, check out those services. Again, want to give a thank you to all of our sponsors, the Isaac Law Firm. Make sure to check out Clout Hub, protecting your right to free speech. Amazing social media platform. If you haven't seen it yet, please go and download it. It's on Apple and Google devices. And a big shout out to Mr. Mike Lindell at MyPillow. Go anything you want at MyPillow, man. I got my MyPillows a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't realize what all they had, Kevin. Got a weighted blanket. I got the dog beds. I got the bathrobes, the whole 9 yards. I even got a cardboard cutout of Mike right here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. But guys, for being a viewer of Dad Talk, if you go to that website and buy something, all you got to do is put in promo code Dad Talk, and you will get up to 66% off. And disclaimer, we will get some of that back here to support the show, and I appreciate Mike for doing that. We're also streaming on the platform Frank now, so we're on Facebook, YouTube, Frank, and Clout Hub. If you guys would like to see our shows, then I guess with that being said, Kevin, I'll see you again in 2 weeks, my man.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. We are so glad you are here. Guys, we are a listener-supported podcast, and without your help, it's hard for us to do this show. If you would, please go over to patreon.com/dadtalktoday, where you can make a monthly contribution towards helping us keep this show on the air. Maybe you don't want to join Patreon. We also have Cashapp. We have Venmo, PayPal, or you can mail us. Dad Talk Studios, LLC, P.O. Box 321, Waverly Hall, Georgia, 31831. Guys, again, we're so glad you're here, and I just want you to remember one thing. You have what it takes to make a difference in the world. Never stop, never give up, and stay cool. Stay Dad. See you next time.